Well, surprise everyone. Surprise to me as well. We have a LegionsCon exclusive or a LegionsCon debut Figura Obscura drop. So the only thing I know about this is that one, a couple days ago, Jeremy said, get ready, there's a Figura coming your way. Two, he said that this is going to be available at LegionsCon. So on the table, it's not even a table anymore. It's a whole store, the Four Horsemen store at LegionsCon. And then down the road, there will be online availability for this particular Figura Obscura. Now, it falls out of sync of everything, right? Like LegionsCon is early November. Your typical 3 times a year are springtime wildcard drop, fall spooky season, Halloween kind of like anticipation drop, which we already had, which was the Jersey Devil. And obviously Halloween is behind us now, or behind you. It's actually a few weeks before Halloween for me. And then the Christmas drop in early November is too early for that. So this is a wild card. And I was thinking about like what could possibly be here and what are some of the things that people have said that they'd like to see or, like to see differently. And some of the things that started to occur to me are like, one, we have 2 running themes or like sublines. We have the gods of ancient Egypt kind of subline of Figura Obscura, and then we have the Christmas Carol subline of Figura Obscura, right? And so I've heard some people say, like, I wish they would just bundle all of the last few Christmas Carol ones together and get it done so that we can get back to doing holiday type winter themed characters outside of A Christmas Carol, because it's going to take years to finish that. So maybe this is a spot for something like that. I don't think it would be like Christmas themed, but the kind of thing that might drop in that range, like a Yeti, an abominable snowman type drop that wouldn't necessarily be holiday themed, doesn't have to necessarily exactly be winter themed, but would like fit some of that, like the desire that some people have for those kind of winter type characters. The other possibility is maybe this is a way to get out some more of those gods of ancient Egypt. They didn't come right back to it last year. They did Ganesha. So maybe this is their way to come back to the gods of ancient Egypt. And if that's the case, I would go back to my original prediction last spring, which was that I thought that they would give us a new bird body and give us Horus. And then that bird body, or at least different parts from that bird body, could be used later on for Aetheron 2, because we know that they're going to be making an Aetheron 2. So they've got to be working on another bird body. And so that's a possibility as well. So those are my 2 predictions, either a Yeti or Horus from the gods of ancient Egypt. So now we know what it's not going to be. So let's open this thing and find out what it is. Here we go, baby. It is a regular size box. So I'm thinking like if they were to do a Yeti, I think it would be ogre scale. And I believe this is maybe not, I'm not entirely sure, but to me, this feels too small to be ogre scale box. So it could be Horus. It could be the next gods of ancient Egypt drop. I like the idea of Horus because it would kind of connect to some of their like Gothotropolis type, those older figures where I think they did a Horus I believe it was in Gothotropolis. I think they did a Horus type character. So, it could be like a throwback to that, knowing that LegionsCon is a very like horseman celebration type situation. But anyway, enough talking. Let me crack this thing open and find out what it is. Here we go. You all know what it is. You're just waiting for me to see what it is, and then for me to get into a review and go over all of it. All right, here we go. It is, oh my God. Oh, it's Thoth. Okay. It looks like a bird. Thoth. Is that right? So we have the mysteries of ancient Egypt, including the various deities they worshipped and their rich belief in the afterlife, continuing to fascinate people thousands of years after the remarkable civilization reached its pinnacle. The Egyptian pantheon was made up of gods and goddesses who, so on and so forth. Thoth is a god of the moon and is associated with writing, wisdom, magic, science, and judgment. Okay, so I'm not super familiar with Thoth, but here we have Thoth. So I was darn close. And he does have the head of a bird, so he is kind of bird-like, but we'll see what his body looks like. So here we go, Thoth, and let me get my knife again and get this out. So actually, I was not far off. All right, let's see here. Let's take a look. Oh, all right, okay. It's very similar to Anubis in terms of the body. So we've got that character right there. So it's got a human body. It's got bird feet. It's hard to see the feet. It's got the bird head. Is it like a pelican? I don't know what kind of head this is, what kind of bird this is. Various accessories and whatnot. Again, a little hard to see inside the box, but definitely feels very Anubis-like in terms of like the build, except for like the feet and the head and stuff. But yeah, so we've got Thoth here. Very cool. And then here's a look at some of the artwork over here. And I know they've been mixing it up a little bit in terms of, sometimes it's Tom and sometimes it's Nate in terms of the art. So I'm not entirely sure who this is. Sometimes there's new artists. Actually, there's a thing. Let's see here. Director of sales. Package and illustrations, Nate Barch and Tom Tolman. So probably working on these together. And sort of a look at that box there over here. So yeah, so that is pretty sweet. This will be on the table at LegionsCon. Of course, if you're already there, you already know. And let's get into this review. DorkLair. Welcome to LegionsCon 2025. If you're watching this video on the date of publication, you are very likely either at LegionsCon, possibly waiting in line to get in there, or you are at home following along with LegionsCon. In either way, I hope you are having a wonderful mythic weekend. Thoth is the third installment of the Four Horsemen Studios Figura Obscura Gods of Ancient Egypt, and I think they did a good job here. And I also should probably pat myself on the back a little bit for my prediction. I did say Horus, but close enough, right? Anyway, the idea of having this figure drop as an extra fourth release in the year rather than kind of like taking up that spring spot. And, if they're going to do a dozen gods of ancient Egypt, that would take a long time to get through that. And then also trying to sprinkle in other wild cards like we got Ganesha this year. So kind of peppering this in separately is, I think, a really good move to kind of like keep the hype train moving on this awesome Gods of Ancient Egypt subline. As far as availability goes for Thoth, this is a LegionsCon debut. This is not a LegionsCon exclusive. So if you are not at LegionsCon, don't worry. There will be an online offering later on. I think early 2026, they're going to offer it online. So don't worry too much. Don't hit the aftermarket for or anything like that. But if you are at LegionsCon, you can walk right into the Four Horsemen storefront. This is the table drop, or it's at least a table drop. I don't know if there's going to be other table drops, but this is definitely a table drop, and it's there, available right now. I know that they're going to have some of the first two gods of ancient Egypt available, but I don't think the supply is going to be great. So if you want to if you're like, oh, I didn't jump in on this line yet and I want to get in on it, go hit that up. If they're sold out, just remember also that there's retailer versions of Anubis and Bastet, and even Bastet that retail Bastet will go good with Thoth here because they have the kind of matching cloth goods there with that that brick red. So that'll be pretty good there. As far as this god goes, this is Thoth. I am not super familiar with Thoth. Pretty much read the little booklet, did some online research and stuff like that. God of magic, god of writing. I actually really like that about this god because I love books. I am an English teacher and I like to pose him up here with his little like record keeping tablet and his stylus there. And so this god is also based on the ibis, a seabird, and you can see that long beak. Just a beautiful figure. A lot of, it's going to hit a lot of the same notes as Anubis, right? A lot of the same body parts, a lot of the same, pieces and sculpture in many areas. So, they're continuing with that look and not going crazy left turn for like changing up how these characters look. They're going to look really good on the shelf together. But the trade-off is that there's, it's a lot of the same style of figure as Anubis, but looking really good in my opinion. As far as the packaging goes, beautiful work, very similar to the first two releases. I am a little surprised that Bastet is on the spine of the box. I kind of wonder if that was an error because it is the Bastet with like the reds. So like it makes me wonder if this is the spine for the other package for the retail Bastet, because it would have been nice to be able to like line them up on the spine and have all three different characters, but having Bastet on the spine of Thoth is a little strange. Might just be a little bit of an error, or maybe it was on purpose. I'm not sure. Maybe it's like a little teaser to like, hey, don't forget there's a retail Bastet coming out soon. Description on the back, got that gateway sort of like, temple look on the inside so that you can kind of have a nice backdrop diorama style for your figures. And then you have the main box with the figure in it, more of that like foil gold lettering, some artwork along the sides and the back. Then you have the insert inside the box that brightens things up with these teals and blues and the eye and the pyramid and everything else looking fantastic. All right, here's a close-up of Thoth with one of the two different portraits. This one I believe is supposed to be more lifelike, like an actual like living being. And then the alternate head, I believe this is supposed to be the statue head where it's kind of like made out of stone. I think it's sort of like crumbling stone, right? Like there's some distress to it over the centuries. And it's got like the gold around the eyes that again kind of make it more statue-like. And then this one being more lifelike bird. Got that beak there. We got some feathers on the neck, as this one does not have those feathers. But yeah, so pretty good looking. I think this piece is identical to the piece on Anubis, as well as the different colors obviously, but like the chest piece here that goes around the neck. I do love the oranges. Like I love what the oranges do for this, and the darker skin. Like Anubis was a much lighter skin tone than this. This is a very dark. This might be the darkest of the human skin tones that we've gotten out of anything out of like Four Horsemen and Mythic Legions and stuff. And then we got these greens on the bands over here. These wrist ones are removable, but the upper arm ones are not. Same belt, different paint job as Anubis. And then we have the cloth goods that are different. These are going to be, I think these will probably match or be very close to what the Bastet figure has for the retail version. And then regular legs as well. And then we get down to really one of the highlights of this figure for me are these new feet, which maybe are a teaser for Aetheron 2 that could already be revealed. I don't even know. We'll find out at LegionsCon, or maybe it's not going to be revealed. Maybe it's going to be something else, but who knows? At least I hope we get to see it, even if it's like a future drop or something. I would like to see what the new Aetheron looks like. Peg hole in the bottom, nicely painted claws and so on. So yeah, I think I like this one better than Anubis, honestly. I think, thematically, magic and learning and writing go with, I love that. I do love these feet better than the paws. So yeah, I think I do like this one a little bit better than Anubis, though they are very, very similar figures. And here he is all zoomed out to give you a look at the overall shape of the figure, which stands just over 7.5 inches tall. And for comparisons, of course, we got to start with the other two gods of ancient Egypt, Anubis and Bastet. And I think this line is coming along very nicely. And eventually there's going to be a shelf on people's displays with the lineup of all the gods, and it's going to be phenomenal. And one other Figura Obscura comparison. On the left, we have Ganesha. On the right, we have the Monkey King, kind of highlighting a little bit of that multicultural aspect of the Figura Obscura line. Then getting some other Four Horsemen comparisons. On the left is a kit bash that utilizes some Cosmic Legions parts and some of the Mythic Legions parts from the new Urzak figure. And then on the right, it's LegionsCon. You cannot have LegionsCon without Sir Gerard. Next, we have some Cosmic Legions figures. On the left is Kern Ray. This is probably going to have some top 10 potential for a lot of people, I think, this year. Incredible figure. And then on the right is Aya Sepetian with the Cosmic Legions head swap, and I definitely get those kind of Stargate vibes from this lineup right here. Of course, LegionsCon being one of the biggest showcase events for independent toy companies, I thought I would bring some of the figures from those companies who are at LegionsCon right now into this review. So on the left, we have one of the statue demons from D13 Toys. And on the right is Odious from Unparalleled Universe, rocking the Cabal t-shirt. I know that the 2025 LegionsCon is going to have a bunch of those little mini t-shirts from a lot of the different creators and content creators and so on. And then he's also got the Sword Horseman there, looking sick as always. Next, a couple bigger, chunkier guys. On the left is Rydur from Armies of Ashmore, and on the right is Vali from the Legends of the Ramayan. Check both of those guys out. They have tables at LegionsCon. Next up, Thalaverse and Spiro Toys. On the left is the Fury Praetorian from the Action Force line. On the right is Lexion from Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. And again, both of these guys are there at LegionsCon in the community room selling figures. Go check them out. And next up, even though this isn't a useful size comparison, while I'm shouting out all the different independent toy companies, I couldn't go without shouting out all the Glyos companies. And all of these guys are going to be represented in some way or another at LegionsCon. From left to right, it's Raw Shark, Spaced Out, Double G Toys with the Titan Skeleton, Spy Monkeys Battle Tribes, God Beast with their new Sectarian, Funkatello with the new Mammoth Monster, Onell's Infinite Faden, and then going over to the other side, we have Warlords of War. That is the Xenaglow Bognar. In the back there, you have Toyfinity's new Manglo Mortis, and then you have Biomasters, Toy Pizza with that Goss Armor Diver crossover, and finally the title lock from Cappy Space. Go check out these guys. A lot of fun. Just great toys, great artists. Check them out in the Glio section over by the Armory Experience. And then finally, I think this is the last figure I have from companies that are going to be there, and just for the sake of completion, I wanted to make sure I included them, even though, again, 5.5-inch Masters of the Universe style figure doesn't really mix well with Legions or anything like that. I wanted to showcase their figure. These guys are awesome. This was last year was my first time picking up one of their figures. I'm very impressed with the quality of this. It's a simple, classic, retro vibe figure, but the colors, the execution, the feel of the plastic and everything is awesome. And there are other creators there. I just don't have their stuff, like Creative Beast. I don't have any Creative Beast pieces. They're going to be there. There's going to be some other creators who haven't put anything out yet, like the Brutal Realm guys, the Legendary guys, and a whole bunch others. Make sure you check all of them out at LegionsCon. And then just for the sake of people wanting to see how these look next to perhaps the most popular toy line of all, here are a couple Marvel Legends, Maximum Spider-Man, Maximum Daredevil, next to the Figura Obscura Thoth. For accessories, like I said, it does come with that alternate head and neck. That neck does have a hinge, though it's going to be a little limiting because this piece kind of doesn't really allow for a ton of forward or back motion. One thing I'll point out is when you're putting the neck on, you got to remove this piece, the collar, and you have to kind of like thread it thread the neck through the collar before attaching it to the neck here. Alternately, you could put the neck on first and then slide this over the top and then pop the head on here. And then this piece pegs in the back. So you kind of bring that over the shoulders, put the head in, peg that in here to the back. And then you can take either this piece right here and swap that over, or you can take the ceremonial crown type piece there and put that on like this to give it that classic Egyptian look right there with the moon. I believe Thoth is a moon god. For hands, it does come with a pair of horizontal gripping hands, a pair of vertically hinged gripping hands, and a pair of pre-accessorized hands. So you have the stylus and the record-keeping tablet right there, and those have horizontal hinges. And he does come with a pair of alternate feet, so if you want to give him human form, you can do that as well. I really love these beautiful recreations of real-world artwork, sculptures. So this is based on an actual piece that is in a museum, and that is very nice. It just has that quality of looking like an actual, like if you were to take a photo of this, like maybe if Trevor, I'm sure we'll see some great Trevor shots, but like somebody who's really good at photography and making stuff look realistic, this is going to look absolutely like just like a real statue. He does come with an ankh, similar to the one that Anubis came with. And then he does have a pair of staffs. In fact, one of these is the same one that came with Anubis right here in that blue color, which is interesting because I feel like we're kind of teasing this guy with all his blues with the Anubis staff right there. And so you could actually do some swapping and give him the staff that kind of matches him in a fun way. But then you've got this one, and then this one's new right here. This one's just got some like less detail, a little softer. But yeah, so 2 staffs right there. All right, let's get into articulation. So like I said, the head is on a hinge that it can come forward a little bit. It can come back. It's going to have a little bit of movement, but it's very limited by this collar piece. Like if you were to take this collar piece off, or not collar, but the headdress, if you were to take the headdress off, you could totally get this thing, bird flying and looking all the way down, but that headdress is going to get in the way. And if you want to pose it without it, it's going to have that peg back there. So I do kind of wish like they did with Bastet, I do kind of wish that there was like a third head that didn't have that piece in the back. I guess a customizer could potentially like buy an extra head and cut it away and kind of repaint it, but it would be nice if they had just a head without the headdress, right? Because that would look kind of cool, I think. And then, there's a little bit of twist at the base of the neck if you want him looking off to the side a little bit and looking down and whatnot. But again, headdress is going to it's going to limit things, in terms of what you can do. Arm is on a hinge that can swing all the way up to about here. It can go all the way around on that swivel. You do have a single jointed elbow that's got about 90 degrees. There's a twist above the elbow, and then you have a twist at the wrist with the hinge, and there's alternate wrists with the vertical hinges. We've got that great Mythic Legions ball joint at the waist that gives a ton of range forward and back. We've got the hips that can swing out into the splits. There's a twist above the thigh. You can kick the leg forward and back, and then you can bring the knees up to about 90 degrees. There's a twist below that knee. There's a hinge at the ankle. And then there's a rocker and a twist as well. Okay, for part swaps, the first one is LegionsCon 2023 mashed up with LegionsCon 2025. We have Walter the Mad. One of the things about this Thoth figure that really struck me, that also struck me about the Walter figure, is the mixing of red and orange. I just think that is such a cool look, and it's kind of like perfect match here with the reds in Walter and the reds in this skirt here and the orange on the little gem pieces and stuff. I just think it works really well. And again, it kind of carries through to that whole Stargate sci-fi space theme, aliens mixed with ancient Egypt, and I'm just a huge fan of that Lost Cronin head. It's just a great piece, and I think this is a subtle, very simple kind of one, but I think it's highly effective in my opinion. And for my other swap, I tried to lean into the bird side of things, and the armor from the Thraxian Scout really kind of reads almost feather-like in this situation, especially with those pauldrons flared up in that weird, unnatural way. Obviously, the colors, maybe don't quite hit that feather feeling, but if somebody were to like repaint these armor pieces, I think they could totally go towards a feathered kind of look. The only issue here is that I'm going without the headdress, which means the head here has the peg in the back, and you'd probably want to maybe find, well, you could either customize the head or maybe find like a cloak or a hood or something to incorporate into this look. But overall, I do think, like, especially down at those feet where the feet meet the armor of the Thraxian, I think it looks awesome. Like it gives it a bird-like quality. So final thoughts, this is a great addition to the Gods of Ancient Egypt subline of Figura. I think that, it's got a lot of reuse. It's not like the most groundbreaking figure, but I do love that brand new head sculpt, that neck. We've got this headpiece up here. We've got the new feet, which are potentially, teasing us for a bird like Aetheron. And just the colors on this thing are awesome. I just really love how that whole thing comes together and looks, and it's going to look fantastic on the shelf next to the other gods of ancient Egypt. I do want to say thank you to the Four Horsemen for continuing to include me in these awesome Figura Obscura reveals. I hope everybody has an excellent time at LegionsCon, and until next time, may the Force be with you.